How were Native Americans massacred to near extinction? Year 1763. European colonizers embarked on global voyages. They later discovered the American continent, but they mistakenly identified it as part of India. Thus, the name Indian was passed on. They then invaded these lands. After several battles, they found that these tribes were difficult to deal with. So they pretended to negotiate and gave towels carrying the smallpox virus to Indians who had never seen such foreign items. From then on, the smallpox virus spread instantly. Within a very short time, large numbers of Native Americans died. They also took everything valuable back to Europe. Another group of European invaders continued to settle here, seizing Native American territories and massacring Native American tribes. Cornered, the desperate Indians began to fight back, which in turn brought out their cannons. In order to accelerate the near extermination of these tribes, the land seizures and massacres were horrific. Within a few years, over 30 Indian villages became ghost towns. However, it didn't end there. The brutal slaughter of Native Americans had only just begun. The United States usurped land through various means and drove them into the uninhabited mountains of the American West. By 1809, after Lincoln came to power, he immediately instituted a policy aimed at exterminating the Indians. The policy stated that any American who handed over $10 would receive nearly 200 acres of Indian land in the West as their own, and after a few years, the land would officially become his private property. After this policy was enacted, it essentially led to the near extermination of the Indians. Not only did they lose their homelands, but they also suffered under the scalping system, where tribal members were brutally killed. In less than a century, the Native American population was reduced by more than half. Cornered, the Native Americans had no choice but to fight back, and launched several campaigns, including the famous Red Cloud War. At this point, the United States began to feel the pressure. Defeated, the U.S. military sought to quell the situation quickly. So, as not to jeopardize the regime, they began negotiations. But this was just a delaying tactic, as they secretly organized a large force of well-trained soldiers. Hunters from Chiajuan City spread into the Indian burial grounds to exterminate the buffalo that the Indians relied on for survival, with near-genocidal shootings. Batch after batch of buffalo fell under their gunfire. And during this buffalo massacre, they shouted that killing one more buffalo would mean one less Indian. According to relevant data, in less than 10 years, over 30 million American buffalo were slaughtered down to fewer than 1,000, nearly extinct. As a result, the Indians lost their essential food source. According to 19th century census data, the original inhabitants of American lands were a once thriving nation of 50 to 60 million people, but in the end, only a few 100,000 survived. However, the United States did not stop there, and turned its attention to the Indian children, subjecting them to an indoctrinating fairy tale education. In these schools, the children did not receive a proper education, but were endlessly abused by white children, beaten and verbally abused. According to related sources, in these boarding schools, you could often hear the heart-wrenching screams of Indian children being beaten. Truly heart-wrenching. And these poor children received no mercy. Instead, they were subjected to the relentless bullying of white children, with even white teachers joining in the abuse of these Indian children. A once glorious nation was brought to the brink of extinction. Such ethnic massacres in history led to countless families being torn apart. On the surface, always shouting for racial equality, but in reality, it all beautifies aggression. As modern civilization continues to develop between countries and between races, there are completely different cultures. Only by seeking common ground while reserving differences and embracing inclusiveness can we protect cultural diversity and strengthen the driving force for the continuous development of human civilization.